Alright. Hello, I'm Garrett Cervantes. We talked about a few points that the affirmative has mentioned. One of them was that hydraulic fracturing contaminates the groundwater. And by the Huffington Post, there's a quote that says, "A landmark federal study on hydraulic fracturing or fracking shows no evidence that chemicals from the natural gas drilling process moved up to contaminate the drinking water aquifers at a western Pennsylvania drilling site," the DPA told the Associated Press. Basically, what that also means is that the fracking takes place at several thousands of feet below the surface, whereas drinking water is only available between 100 to 500 feet below the surface of the earth. Shale fracking, which is what we're discussing, takes place at depths of about 5,000 to 8,000 feet below the surface of the earth. There's very little evidence against the contamination of drinking water. There was an example given about faucets being lit on fire due to fracking. That's from a movie called Gasland, and that was actually debunked, and that was due to high methane, and that had nothing to do with the fracking going on in the local area. Also on that point, they say that methane contamination was due to fracking. There have been several studies showing that methane is actually a naturally occurring gas below the surface of the earth, and it occurs above the cap rock, which is the formation under the earth which holds in all the gases below, and below that is the shale rock, which is where the natural gas the natural gas due to fracking is extracted from. So basically, any kind of gas that's released under the ground is held back beneath the cap rock, and it is not due to fracking that this methane exists above that cap rock. According to the siteexploreshale.org, approximately 10% to 30% of the total water used per frac returns to the surface with the extracted gas. The remaining water remains deep underground and is mostly absorbed by the shale formation, which is isolated from the water table, which just goes along with what I was just saying. According to Conservation of California, all oil and gas wells drilled and constructed in California must adhere to strict requirements. These requirements include general laws and regulations regarding the protection of underground and surface water, and specific regulations regarding the integrity of well casing, the cement used to secure the well casing inside the borehole, and the cement and equipment used to seal off the well from underground zones bearing fresh water and other hydrocarbon resources. This goes along with their solution, which was saying that they need to increase regulations on the well casings. But according to several government legislatures, those are already being well defined. And I also have another example from Pennsylvania, which is where many of their examples are from. The DEP says that Pennsylvania regulations indicate the casing must be cemented within ASTM approved cement to a minimum of 50 feet deeper than the deepest fresh groundwater. The cement is intended to isolate the casing from groundwater and prevent natural gas from leaking up and around the outside of the pipe, a condition that could potentially allow gas to enter the groundwater supply or cause gas to escape at the surface. Now that I've covered those points, I'm going to talk about workability and disadvantages. Workability-wise, what kind of regulations are required? Are they going to be federal or state regulations? How will these regulations be enforced? There was no mention of that. The costs associated with the enforcement. Currently, right now, I know that there are several tests to be done around current fracking sites. But by increasing these regulations, you're also increasing the amount of testing being done, which also drives the price of these, the cost of fracking to go up. If these regulations are passed, where do those costs go? Do the oil company or the gas companies absorb the cost, or do they go down to the consumer? Several disadvantages. If the fracking is strictly regulated, there may be a decrease in the amount of natural gas produced. according to the Energy Collective, the U.S. produces 9% of the total natural gas production. So a decrease in the amount of gas produced would have a big impact on the earth and the amount of natural gas available. I already talked about the extra costs associated with the enforcement of regulations. Also, regulations may inhibit further development. If companies aren't allowed to produce natural gas, they're going to move their business elsewhere or just simply vanish. And that's it.